As you all know, our event this evening is sponsored by the Sanibel Historical Museum and Village. Our final celebration tonight is for that very organization, which was founded in 1984, making the museum 40 years old. Today, the small village on Dunlop Road has 9 historic buildings, which were all moved there from various locations on the island. Ellie Dormer, the daughter of Ross and Daisy Mayer, who built Shorehaven, saw the need to preserve island history. Dormer worked with the city of Sanibel to found the museum. The organization's mission is clear: to preserve, share, and celebrate the history of Sanibel. Starting with just one building in 1984, the Rutland House, by 2012, the village grew to include 9 historic buildings. From 1984 until 2012, the village grew with a huge amount of support from the Bailey brothers, Sam and Francis. After tough negotiations in 2004, the old schoolhouse was finally moved from its location on Periwinkle near Purdy Avenue, today the site of SCCF Pushell Tract. Sam Bailey was so moved by the acquisition of this school building, it brought him to tears. Early on, the village was modest, operating through the dedication of volunteers like Mary Bell, Milbree Rushworth, Jody Brown, and others. In Betty Ann Holt's words, quote, "They shaped and fought for the place and should not be forgotten." For many years, the museum's longtime director, Emily Alfino, had an office in the small storage room of the old Bailey's store. Then in 2012, Shorehaven was the final historic building moved to the site. Today, it houses the welcome desk, the gift shop, and offices for the museum's staff. For our final celebration this evening, we'd like to welcome 2 women who have devoted thousands of hours for nearly 2 decades to develop the museum and village. They were there in the early days. Please join me in welcoming Gayle Pence and Gayle Garlinghouse.
Thank you. Listening to everybody speak this evening, gives me a great deal of pride, and I know it does all our volunteers at the village, that we have the honor of preserving and sharing and celebrating this wonderful history. Gail and I have been at the village. I came in 2003, Gail came in 2004, and since we have been there, we've added, not us, but the village has added buildings, volunteers, and fundraisers. As many of you know, the village does have a budget from the city, but we find that we really need to exceed that budget in maintaining some of our buildings and our exhibits, etc. So we are going to talk this evening a few little fun stories about some fundraisers that we've been involved with. And we talked about the schoolhouse, the 1896 schoolhouse that was a theater for many years. Many of you probably enjoyed the schoolhouse theater. Well, anyway, Sam Bailey went to that school when that building was a school as opposed to a schoolhouse. And it was always his dream for 20 years that we get that schoolhouse back to the village, because the village was really Sam's dream, and he worked so hard to put it together so we would all have our history encapsulated. So anyway, the schoolhouse was leaving the building because they were going to a new building, the schoolhouse theater. So anyway, that parcel of land was for sale, and the buyer wanted the land but did not want the building. So it was arranged that through the, I believe, county tourism or state tourism, they bought the building for Sanibel, for the village, and then it was the Harriet Spot Fund who paid to have the schoolhouse moved to the village. And this happened in December 29th, 2004. And several of us in this building, I know, were there that day and saw it roll in about 6:30 in the morning. And I'll never forget the tears that were running down Sam's cheeks. He was so happy to have that schoolhouse there because he had attended that schoolhouse as a child. So anyway, we get the schoolhouse, and getting back to fundraising, we get the schoolhouse to the village, and the building was paid for, the moving was paid for, but now we needed to have some restoration done so it looked like the schoolhouse, because it had been a theater for 40 years. So at that time, we were not even a 501c3. We were just a docent council that was the governing body of the village. And we were a very small group. And we're thinking, now, what are we going to do? And somebody finally mentioned a fundraiser. We thought, oh my gosh, we can't do like Big Arts does, Crow, SCCF. We're just such a small village. And somebody said, why not? So we all took a deep breath and thought, okay, we can do it. So we had people like Wayne Boyd, who built 25 replicas of the schoolhouse, their birdhouses. And we had some lovely ladies that underwrote part of having this fundraiser at the sanctuary. We had, again, community. The merchants of the community donated items for a silent auction and a live auction. And we basically had everything together, but we didn't have a band. And we needed a big draw, because this is the first time we'd been out of the chute with having anything, and people really didn't know that much about us, so we had to do something, had to have a draw. Well, at that time, and I don't know if any of you remember, the reunion band that was really big on Sanibel that time. So we thought, okay, we're going to get the best band we can, and a band that people will really want to come and dance to, and that'll get them to the fundraiser. So anyway, we didn't have the money because the reunion band was $600. So Deb Gleason and I went to the Bailey store, walked upstairs to Sam's office, and we found him. Sam loved to write poetry, so we got in there, and Sam was one of his poetry writing moods, and he was writing some poetry, and he had to share it with Deb and I. And anyway, we sat there for about 15 minutes, and all of a sudden, Deb just looks him right in the eye, and she said, "Sam, we came to ask you something." And Sam says, yes. And she said, we need money for a band for this fundraiser so we can restore the schoolhouse. He goes, well, how much? We told him $600. He goes, $600? He says, we don't need to pay that. He says, I can get some people around here that'll do it for us for maybe free. And I'll never forget this, and you all know Deb Gleason. She looked him right in the eye, and she said, Sam, we need this band. Well, you know what? Sam underwrote the band. We had our fundraiser. It was so successful. And, we really got our money's worth from the band because we had people there dancing until the band quit. So we got our money, and we were able to restore the schoolhouse, and please come and visit it. Thank you.
And I'm going to tell you about another fundraiser we had shortly, it was about a year after the one that Gail just told you about. The year was 2011, and volunteers from the Sanibel Historical Museum and Village sponsored a fundraiser, again at the Sanctuary Golf Club dining room, and the program included a luncheon, a style show, and an auction. The style show was called Les Chapeaux, the hats. Models were chosen to dress as memorable island women from the years 1884 through 1960 and a little bit beyond that. The commentator began with these words, and I quote, "With a nod of our chapeau, it's hats on as we celebrate our strong-spirited, resilient, resourceful, and ever so memorable island women. Their impact still echoes through our islands, so just what hats did they wear?" End of quote. The ladies from our past were described in the style show commentary, but I won't go through all that tonight. However, I would like to share with you the names of the museum volunteers and supporters who were the models that day, and which of our past island women we chose to depict. The models that day, and there's a few of us in the house tonight: Roberta Pichelle, Vera Valentino, Dorothy Donaldson, Blair Wyatt Berry, she's here, Wanda Malone, Meade Johnson, Isabella Rossi, Ada Schisler, Alicia Jordan, and myself. They were dressed as the following island women: Anna Woodring, Jean Barnes, Jenny Doan, Jane Matthews, Hallie Matthews, Letitia Nutt, Ann Meade Matthews Bailey, Charlotta Matthews, Esperanza Woodring, Mozella Jordan, Alice O'Brien, Mary Bell, Priscilla Murphy, Dorothy Stearns, Emmy Lou Lewis, and Z. Butler. I might add that Meade Johnson modeled an outfit belonging to her grandmother, Annie Meade Matthews Bailey, and Alicia Jordan wore an outfit belonging to her grandmother, Mozella Jordan. The style show ended with these comments, and again I quote, "So we offer thanks to the many island women who embraced this almost forgotten little barrier island and battled through hardships and near unbearable circumstances just to call it home. Here's to the years when rare shells rolled in endlessly. Water was collected in cisterns, mosquitoes embedded themselves in window screens, Periwinkle was a dirt road, and the people of Sanibel had the foresight to preserve and protect the unique environment. We take our hats off in celebration for our island sisters." If you didn't recognize all of those names of the older island ladies, I would suggest you ask a docent on your next trip to the village. In closing, I would like to tell you a quick story of mine from that day. Like I said, there was an auction. There I spotted a painting by Mira Roberts of Alice O'Brien. Right there. Alice was not only the captain of her father's yacht, but a good friend of Ding Darling and his wife. They shared conservation goals for the islands, and she was instrumental in the founding of the Sanibel Captiva Conservation Foundation. In the painting by artist Mira Roberts, I noticed that I had been dressed in the style show in the exact same outfit. White pants, red and white shirt, carrying binoculars, and wearing a hat that I had borrowed from Roland, who at the time was the Commodore of the Captive Island Yacht Club. I really wanted that painting. When I went to pay for my painting, however, I realized that the price was a little more than I thought I had seen it. I was a little nervous going home that day. But when I showed Roland my new purchase, his comment to me was, "Well, it went for a good cause." And I agree.
Thank you, Gail and Gail. Prior to Sanibel's recent hard times, the pandemic, and multiple hurricanes, nearly 10,000 people a year visited the village. We have no doubt that we will reach that number again and surpass it.